I mentioned last night, it's important to know, I'm not presumptuous enough. I didn't learn by Rabbi Soloveitchik. I didn't learn from his students. I simply am a Jew who is inspired by Rabbi Soloveitchik, and I hope that his teachings will inspire us as well. Rabbi Soloveitchik transcended many places, many groups of Jews, many denominations, and was perhaps one of the most influential American Jewish thinkers of the last generation, of the last century. Rav Soloveitchik is a brisker, a grandson of Rav Chaim of Brisk, a son, I believe his name was Rav Moshe of Brisk. And briskers are unique in that even though they are Ashkenazi, they are utterly obsessed with Maimonides' teachings, with the Rambam. Perhaps not on a philosophical level, but at the very least on a halachic level. Most of the brisker teachings that I've studied start with the Rambam somewhere. They end with the Rambam, start with the Rambam, breathe the Rambam, drink the Rambam. And the briskers have brought a certain Maimonides awareness to the world that other people perhaps haven't brought to the world. There's an essay that we'll be studying from Rav Soloveitchik called, it's discussing whether one should destroy their evil if someone has a past. When we do Teshuvah, are we trying to destroy our past? Are we trying to destroy the bad things that we do? Are we trying to erase them? Or are we trying to uplift our past? Uplift our evil experiences, uplift the negativity in our life. And Rav Soloveitchik is not talking from a place of emotion. He talks from a place of Jewish philosophy that always starts in halakha. When people tell me, oh, I study Jewish philosophy, I don't study Jewish law. Jewish law is where our philosophy begins. Like we mentioned yesterday in Shulchan Aruch. If Shulchan Aruch takes into consideration a Jewish person who is doing averot, we have to also have a philosophy. The halakha is teaching you a philosophy. And so he starts off with the following teaching. On page 149.
Question.
Yes.
Would you then consider Chassidut a philosophy based on halacha or a mixture of halacha Kabbalah?
I believe that every authentic Jewish hashkafa is based on halakha. I believe that in the last few hundred years we've had different groups of Jews to different extremes, mixing Kabbalah into the realm of halakha, some in places where it's warranted and some in places where it has been exaggerated. And that could lead to all kinds of confusions about understanding of Jewish law.
The Baal Tanya said that halacha was Kabbalah in the world of Atzilut.
Right, so that is a sentence that only a Kabbalist could understand. And I don't purport to
But
be
it was
one.
interesting he said that.
On page 149, Katav HaRambam. The Rambam writes,
What page?
page 149. The Rambam writes, Beperek Rishon Milchot Teshuvah, the first chapter of the laws of Teshuvah. 149. Kol HaMitzvot Shebatorah.
It's okay. No, but
All of the mitzvot in the Torah, ben aseh, ben lo ta'aseh, whether mitzvot that are commandments or mitzvot that are things you must refrain from. For example, we have a commandment to celebrate Shabbat with kiddush, with meals, with tefillah. We also have a commandment not to violate Shabbat. People refer to those as positive and negative commandments. You're not going to get a whole generation of Jews to follow the Torah if you refer to half of the mitzvot of the Torah as negative. If a person violates one of the teachings of the Torah, ben bizadon, whether intentionally, ben bishgaga, or whether unintentionally. So it doesn't make a difference if he did it on purpose or not on purpose. Ksheyaseh teshuvah v'yashuv mechetah, when a person does teshuvah and he returns from his sin that he did, his misdoing, chayav litvadot lifnei ha'el baruch hu, he must confess to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shneimar, like it says in the Torah, ish o isha ki yasu mikol chatat ha'adam, chatot? והתוודו את חטאתם אשר עשו, זה וידוי דברים. Says the Rambam, a person, the first step of teshuvah is I must confess that I did something wrong. Vidui ze mitzvot aseh. This confession is a biblical commandment on its own. Not doing teshuvah, not stopping, just confess I did something wrong, this is a biblical commandment. The Maimonides continues, Ketzad mitvadeh. So what is vidui? What is a confession? Every person should write this sentence down and put it in your wallet. I make witnesses on the Chubah, I make them say this sentence. Ana Adonai, please Hashem, Chatati, Aviti, Pashati, 3 different kinds of avirot. You want the exact English words? I'll look it up in the Siddur, I don't know how to tell you. I did wrong, I did wrong, I did wrong. 3 different words for it. Lefanecha, in front of you, Vasiti kach v'kach, and I did this. You have to explicitly mention what it is that I did wrong. V'harei nichamti or nachamti? V'harei nichamti uvoshti b'masai, I regret and am embarrassed by my actions. Ule'olam eini chozer ledvar zeh, and I will never come back to do this again. This is the basis of confession. This sentence is the minimum that must be said. Yes.
So I wanted to clarify. You're talking about between you and God, not between you and another person.
Correct. Incorrect also. Meaning, you're right. This doesn't work on its own with an averah that I did to somebody else. I can't say, Hashem, forgive me for what I did to him. That doesn't work. I must first repair what I did to them. But part of that also is I did something wrong to Hashem. Hashem told me not to do that to him. And therefore every mitzvah demands a vidui to Hashem. One, it is only between me and Hashem, and one is between me and Hashem and between him and myself. Yes, it's a good point.
Another thing is that, in a sense, if a person, let's say, has an addictive behavior that they're confessing, and they said they're never going to do it again, is that considered before Hashem as a positive intention? Or if the person knows that they can easily go back, is it a form of
This
lying?
whole chapter is about this question. This whole chapter is, vidui is obviously not enough. So in which situations do I bring up vidui? Which do I not? And which is vidui a big deal? Which is vidui a small deal? We're going to get into this together from Rav Soloveitchik, but before that, I want to talk again about the Rambam and the Soloveitchik family. Rav Soloveitchik's writings have been reprinted, some of them even printed for the first time. There's, Rav Kook talks about this. This is yours here today. So, Rav Kook talks about a conscious individual teshuvah. I decide I did something wrong. I know that I did something wrong. I want to do something right. He then talks about a subconscious national teshuvah. The Jewish people as a whole decide we want to go back to Israel, even though we don't believe in God, even though we don't believe in the Torah, even though we don't believe in the sanctity of the land of Israel, but something pushed hundreds of thousands of Jews to just get up and move to Israel. That is called a subconscious teshuvah. You ask them, why did you do it? Because Hashem wants you in Israel? No, because I wanted to get away from Russia. But they did it, Rav Kook says, the subconscious teshuvah. Israel is going through continuous stages of subconscious teshuvah. And one of them is that this secular newspaper called Yediot Achronot has started printing a whole library of Jewish books, like authentic Jewish books. And one of them is they got into the writings of Rav Soloveitchik, and they're printing Rav Soloveitchik's writings, and they sell them at normal bookstores like Barnes and Nobles in Israel, the Israeli version of that. You'll go in and you'll buy the Rambam, you'll buy Rav Kook, incredible books that are being reprinted. And
the New York Times.
It's like the New York Times publishing these books.
I saw those books when I was in Israel.
Yeah, very good. And this,
I couldn't believe it.
these are incredible things. I mean, the difference is that when you buy religious books in a religious bookstore, it's about a third of the price. But it's 3 times the price. But they have a lot of money. They do a good job. These are professional printing. The writing is good. The papers are nice. And so these are letters from Rav Soloveitchik about being a rabbi. I've used this volume a lot. The good times and the less good times. He writes a letter to Professor Dr. Shimon Ravitowitz, how do you pronounce it exactly? Who was a scholar of Jewish studies, and he passed away in 1957. So Rav Soloveitchik writes him this letter in 1953. So he hasn't had a chance yet to read this essay that the professor sent him, but he wants to tell him. Tish'a kabei sakranut yardu bi biyachas leba'al hayad chazaka. He said, Hashem gave me 9 out of 10 measurements, immense interest and curiosity into the writings of the Rambam. Halahu ach u'modan mishpachti. He's a good brother and a friend of my family. The Rambam. You have to understand. The Rambam lived about 1,000 years ago in Egypt. I traveled a lot, but Egypt, let's say. The Soloveitchiks are a European family. I don't even know where Brisk is. Brisk must be in Poland. I don't know. Yeah, Poland? Okay. So he's not really a brother, and it's been 1,000 years since they each lived, but he says it's like he's a brother of our family. Margish ani ki'ilu noladti al birkav. I feel that I was literally born on the Rambam's knees, says Rav Soloveitchik.
Wow.
יוצא ונכנס היה בבית אבא מרי כידיד ותיק ונאמן. He used to come in and out of my father's house like a good, old, trusted friend. Don't, no spirits, guys. He's not a Catholic. But, like, we studied his writings so much, it felt that the Rambam was always coming in and out of my dad's home. Abba, Skini, my father, my grandfather, Dodai, my uncles, ושאר בני ביתנו מתייחדים היו עמדו לעתים תכופות. He said, our family members were very used to having private audiences with the Rambam all the time. Misochichim, we would have conversations with him. Shoalim zelazeh, we would ask each other questions. Makshim, we would ask questions on each other, not about each other. We'd mitvachim, we would argue with each other. Ma'azinim bekeshev rav, we would listen to the Rambam speak with such dedication. Umeshivim b'tragshut, and we always answered back to him with a lot of emotion. Panim zoamot v'gam nirot hitzitzu chalifot. And sometimes we were red in the face that we were screaming at the Rambam, and sometimes we were so happy with the things the Rambam told us. Our rabbis tell us that when you study Torah, you don't study alone. When I'm studying Rav Soloveitchik, that means that Rav Soloveitchik is at this table across from us, learning with us. If you think that you're learning a book by some dead guy, and it has nothing to do with him, I'm just reading his writings, you're mistaken. In the Bet Midrash, when I learn Shulchan Aruch, I'm sitting with Rabbi Yosef Karo. When I'm learning the Ramah, I'm sitting in front of Rabbi Moshe Israelish. When we study the Rambam, we must feel that he's in the room with us. That's why we rabbis are very against the academic world. They'll mention Rabbi, let's come up with a name. Let me use my name, that way I'm not going to be mizazel on anybody. I won't defame anybody. They'll write, Rabbi Yonatan Halevy is a rabbi in San Diego. And then for the rest of the article, what will they call me?
Yonatan.
Halevy this, Halevy that. Halevy thinks this, Halevy wants to go there. Halevy, what is he, a friend? What do you know him? Not me, it's okay to say Halevy. But the Rambam, all of a sudden, Rabbi Yosef becomes Yosef. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein becomes Feinstein. Because they don't feel that he's listening to what he's saying. I wouldn't speak like that in front of him. We have this intimate connection with the Rambam. It says, Nochach hayiti b'zdamniot elu. He said, I was there when they used to fight and talk with the Rambam. Lechatchila, originally, b'shachar yelduti, ki tinok rachuv al ktefo shel Abba. I was just a little boy that was on my father's shoulders. Hayiti mabit u'makshiv birat hakavod u'v'timahon shel i-havana. He said, I was a little boy, I would just sit on my father's shoulders and I would listen to the Rambam talk. But I didn't understand anything he said. I just respected this man who was sitting in our living room. Achei after this, כשגדלתי קצת, when I grew up a little bit, השתתפתי כטוען וכעוזר על ידי הגדולים. I started getting involved in the conversations. And so the older people helped me out, but I also used to talk with the Rambam. I also used to argue with him. I also used to answer his questions. אחת אני יכול להעיד כי אבותיי מעולם לא ויתרו אף על קוצו של יוד של מידת ההיגיון וההכרה ההלכתית. He said, and I can tell you one personal testimony, that when the Rambam was sitting at our table in Brisk, he said, never once did my family lose their integrity. ולא הכינו את ראשם בהכנעה להוד אישיותו הפלאית של מורם הגדול. They never bowed their head in submission to their great teacher, the Rambam. They didn't just accept him. They never lost their logic, says Rav Soloveitchik. Haneratz v'negdash edam was the rabbi, he was the holiest man to them. Imidat ha'emet hitnegda la'achrato l'dato. He said, even if he was the rabbi, and he was the holiest person in the world, he used to come to visit them in their house. If they felt that the truth was not with the Rambam, they didn't give in to him. This is very different than other people's relationships with their teacher. If I think they're the best, I think they're right, I will never argue with them. They must know better than me. How often do I ask the person, you really think that what you do is correct? My rabbi, you think he doesn't know what you say? You think he never... Well, you know, answers like this. A monkey from the jungle talks like this. A person with a sechel, with logic, is not afraid to ask questions, even on my rabbi, even on my teachers, out of respect. And I know that my teacher would never want me to accept the things that he says just because he says them. And if I have a teacher who wants me to accept things just because he says them, then that person is no longer my teacher.
But the question here is, on what basis would they be arguing with the Rambam?
Let's say they see the Rambam says something here, and the Talmud says differently. So they'll fight with the Rambam. Amitzut lev no'azah heru b'fgishot elu. He says they had brave courage when they would fight with the Rambam in these meetings. V'heshivu milchama lo pachad u'lo morach lev. So they would come, but they were never afraid, and they would fight back like they were going to war with the Rambam. Omnam ken, he says sometimes, though, לפעמים היה יוצא רבנו משה, sometimes our rabbi Moshe would get up, the Rambam. ועטרת הניצחון על ראשו. And he was wearing the crown of victory. He would sometimes win. אחרי משא ומתן ארוך, הודו אבא מורי וזקנו על האמת, והדו שיח היה נגמר בכיתוב, בפתגם ישן נושן. So sometimes we would end off the discussion with the famous Brisker teaching that we made up. ולפי זה מיושבים דברי הרמב"ם ואין מקום לקושיית השח. This is a famous Brisker teaching. That rabbi who asked the question Maimonides, we had a discussion with Maimonides already, and there's no room for that rabbi's questions. He's right. בשעה כזו היו הכל שמחים. So that moment everybody was so happy. המורה הגדול, משום שהלכה כמותו, the great rabbi was happy because he was right, והתלמידים and the students, Abba Mari, my father, Uskani, my grandfather, Mishum Shlo Tzrachu Lehamrot al Rabam, because they did not have to betray their rabbi. Everyone was happy for a different reason. Naharat Batschok Shachna Az al Pnei HaChavura, Harav VaTalmidim, everybody was happy and they were joyful and they were all smiling. Baram Lo Tamid. This wasn't always the case. Befrakim Bilti Nedirim, sometimes, very rarely, הפיקה הרסת פני אבא וזקני מרד ועקשנות. My parents and grandparents, their faces were filled with a venom of fighting, of stubbornness. וההלכה הייתה עמומה יותר מדי, והרב לא הצליח להעמיד את התלמידים בקרן אורה. The rabbi was unable to convince the students that he was correct. גמר המשא ומתן הצטיין ברתחנות ורגזנות. This conversation would end with boiled hatred and fighting, anger. נאנחים היו אבא וזקני הנחה שהביע יגון קודר על בגידתם ברבם. So my father and grandfather would let out this sigh of, I can't believe we're being forced to rebel against our rabbi. אבל גם קשות העורף שכלית שלא להיכנע במקום שאין הסברה נתפסת לו. But they were also very proud that they didn't give in, they didn't compromise on their integrity, on their truth, on their logic. והיו חותמים מתוך פסק כזה, and they would always sign off their answers with the following sentence that is very common in Brisker Torah when they disagree with the Rambam. V'divrei harambam mukshim me'od. The words of the Rambam are very difficult to understand. They would never say he's wrong. They would never say we know better. They would just say the words of the Rambam are difficult to comprehend. Nidmeh hayta li b'ota sha'a. It appeared to me, says Rabbi Soloveitchik, that at that moment, ki ben hamoreh uven hatalmidim, that between the rabbi and the students, hayu bochim, they were crying.
Wow.
Both of them. Kulam hayu nechzavim. Everybody was disappointed in that room. Was nice, and my little boy ears, hayu koltot b'chiyah. It says they would hear voices of tears, of crying. Shifkia dumiyat adorot, which split the generations. בחיית רבי אליעזר הגדול בבית המדרש, או שם בלוד, כשתלמידיו נמנו עליו וברכו, והתייפכות התלמידים על הקטרוג ומיצוי הדין כנגד הרב, שנפשותיהם היו קשורות בו. He said, it seems like this disappointment, that this split went back all the way to the times of the Talmud. That we had did some injustice in the Beit Midrash sitting in Babylon. That's how far back it went.
Did the students know Aristotelian philosophy?
He just mentions Aristotle in the next sentence.
Good.
So such tragedies, they happen all the time in the Jewish people. says how famous are the words of Aristotle, who said, "Al davar, al davar b'chot ahavat ha'emet al Appleton, לעומת הסבל הדרמטי המשתקף בדברי ימי ההלכה." He said, compare and contrast the words of Aristotle when he had to disagree with his rabbi, with his teacher, who was?
Plato?
Plato. In Hebrew they call him Appleton. I don't know why.
Appleton?
Yeah.
Appleton.
Applaton. I guess maybe that's his real...
Aristo and Appleton.
I made him Ashkenazi. Appleton. You know, it's like
Sounds like a chain store.
And he ends off his letter. Hirbeti dvarim she'en behem tzorach, that I am apologetic, says Rav Soloveitchik. I mentioned things that I probably shouldn't have mentioned. I spoke too much. וכל יתר כנטול דמי, אבל דמות דיוקונו של המורה הגדול חביבה אליי יותר מדי. Normally I don't talk so much, he says. But my rabbi's image in front of my eyes says it's too great for me not to speak so much. וכשאני נתקל בה, and whenever his name comes up, whenever I meet my rabbi again, if it's in a book, if it's in a Shulchan Aruch, if it's in a teaching, sentimentalיות, that's not a Hebrew word, יתרה, בוקעת ועולה מתוך נבחי תודעתי. He said there's a certain sentiment that just comes out from the depths of my soul. So I just had to write about it. B'yedidut ne'emana with beloved Yosef Dov Soloveitchik.
Wow.
Soloveitchik.
What a piece.
Powerful.
Yeah.
This piece of Rav Soloveitchik, when I read it in this book, it made sense why I paid 98 shekels for this book. I would pay 1,000 shekels for this book. This letter, it's an incredible experience. I cannot tell you in any other way better than Rav Soloveitchik. This is how it felt when we would study Torah in front of our parents. When we would learn Shulchan Aruch, when we would learn the Rambam, when we would study Teshuvah, when we would sing the songs of tzaddikim, it always felt like we were singing with them, that we were learning with them. Our parents would tell us, don't ask that question, he's right here, fight with him, don't just accept everything. And you almost think that we're all hallucinating. You know, I mentioned drugs before, and acid trips and all that. But this is an experience of Kedusha. This is the holiest of holies. To be sitting in a place when I went to Poland to visit the grave of Rabbi Moshe Israelish in Krakow. It was a Motzei Shabbat, and I cried at his grave. I cannot tell him much I cried. I told him I'm asking him 1,000 times forgiveness that I don't always follow halakha like him, because I have a previous loyalty to Rabbi Yosef Karo. But sometimes I just have to go that way. It's not intentional. But I feel that for my whole life I've been sitting across the table from Rabbi Moshe Israelish, from the Rambam, from the Shulchan Aruch, from Yosef Karo. Those of you who are in this kollel, you'll know, we feel the same way. We all feel like we've met minds, we've crossed paths with some of the greatest minds in history. And as my rabbi once told me, these are not books that have been sealed, but the Jewish tradition is still an open conversation. We are still having this conversation. So long as the walls of the Bet Midrash still stand, we will forever continue to debate the Rambam versus Rashi and Tosfot versus and Rabbi Eliezer versus Hillel and Shammai. We're going to be this for the rest of our lives. We're going to be learning like this. But you are part of the Jewish conversation. And perhaps what I could say, because it's time to pray Arvit, is next week when we go study Rav Soloveitchik, and we'll be doing this about half an hour before Slichot. Slichot start in 10 minutes, so about half an hour before. Those of you who just want to cover Slichot, you can come to study with us Rav Soloveitchik. My dream, my hope, my vision is that we become so connected to these personalities, that we feel that we are also part of this conversation. I mean, what is Teshuvah? What does return mean? Return means leave the stagnant Judaism of the street. Leave the empty Judaism of the synagogues. Get rid of the bankrupt Judaism of the Hebrew schools. And come back to the living Judaism of the Bet Midrash. Somebody who never had a chance to study in a Bet Midrash, you have it here almost every night. We have a Bet Midrash here. To just listen to ideas, to hear things, to ask things. Those of you know that I don't always have answers, but there's no question that cannot be discussed inside of this Bet Midrash. If it comes from a place of Kedusha, from a place of holiness, from a place of knowledge, from a place of wanting to connect backwards. And I believe that I very much got a lot of these character traits from my grandfather that I never met, from my Rabbi Yaakov. I'm named after him. And I believe that in this Bet Midrash, in Kehillat Shaar HaShamayim, not just in San Diego, we have the ability to spread this teaching to the whole world. We're not just Jews in a lost generation in time. We are still writing the books of Judaism today. We're doing it as a community. We're encouraging other communities to do it as well, to connect to these teachers. You'll never be able to look at a Jewish book the same way again. You'll never be able to look at a Shulchan Aruch and think, oh, that's a book that was sealed 500 years ago. Now a rabbi wrote an article. We need to get rid of the Shulchan Aruch. Why get rid of the Shulchan Aruch? Clearly, and I don't blame him, clearly he was not taught the Shulchan Aruch as a book of life. For him it was a book of death. There was a bunch of old rabbis, commentaries on the page. he wasn't engaged in that conversation. He didn't feel like he had a say in that conversation. And of course, he wants something more relevant. But here, the style is completely different. We're going to sit next Monday night with Rav Soloveitchik himself. And through his words, we're going to hear him tell us, what does Teshuvah really mean? What does Vidui really mean? We're going to say Chatay, Teviti, Pashati so many times on Yom Kippur, and 40 days until then in Slichot. But what are we really saying? That we're going to start discovering next week. B'ezrat Hashem, I look forward to doing it with you.